Okay, in today's class, you will have a substitute, but nonetheless, what you're going to be working on here is perfecting or beginning the process of perfecting your cover letter and your resume. Now, you work on both of them because in reality, resumes don't just go in without any sort of cover letter. Even online applications give you a chance to do that. The resume needs to be considered to be an outline of the pertinent information. It is the listing of all of the things that you have to qualify you for the position in terms of educational requirements, experience requirements, etc. The cover letter really is your marketing document. That's the first thing they're going to look at in most cases. And if they don't like the cover letter, then it doesn't matter what your resume says. It doesn't even matter if you are the ideal candidate for the job. If you don't get past that, you may as well not bother. The purpose of all of these is to get you an interview. And the interview is where you actually come across as the person they want to have in the job. And we'll be working on interview skills later on in this mod. But the cover letter is really where it starts. I've got an example here. All documents will have a header with your name, address, and contact information. Note that I say your address, 1 or 2 lines. It can be all the way across, street address, city, etc. Or you can have a standard format where you have the number and street and then the city and state on a second line. Your phone number, always, and an email contact. That's all you use. We don't put down anything else about our social media contacts or anything. They're going to look for those anyway. So, but social media is something we'll talk about later as well. The line is not necessary. What is necessary, and even though the 2 examples I show you won't have this because they actually are modified versions from 2 other students who were successful in getting jobs, the heading here, the header, needs to be exactly the same on both your cover letter and your resume. Date, be the date you write it. The address, if you have a person, if your job position named a person who is responsible for the job, write the letter to them. So if not, and in this particular case, this job at UC Poudre Valley, there was no person listed. So you just write it to the Human Resources Department or hiring manager, depends on what it is. Human Resources Department will be at a hospital. A practice may just have a hiring manager. Give the full address. Here, what it's about. You're applying for the position of medical assistant, occupational health position in UC Poudre Valley Hospital. Right away, they know what position you're after. And they need to know that. They don't want to put you in with people who are applying to be finance administrators, for instance. So then if you have a human being, dear Ms. So-and-so, and the wording will vary. What you're doing is telling exactly what you want. And again, repeat that you're looking for the medical assistant in the occupational health department. Identify where you found this listing. They really appreciate finding out that the money that they pay, Indeed and Monster and Careers.com and all the other places that they advertise, they want to know they're getting some results from that. Now, they don't expect to hire everybody that's there, but what they want to know is how you found it. They usually appreciate that. So right away, you're giving them something back just for reading your letter. So you just say, must have been written with me in mind. Nothing wrong with that. Don't sound like you're being too bragging, but promote yourself. Okay. So here, this person, I'm a hardworking, detailed, organized, and compassionate caregiver, medical assistant, gets along well with staff members and patients. Okay, that's kind of a long sentence. But here are the qualifications. She has her CMA certification, phlebotomy and vital signs experience, working with the public, CPR and first aid, pharmacy training, etc., administering injections, billing. So all of these things are important. Then tell them your resume is attached or accompanies it. Closing it out, thank them for reading the letter, appreciate the opportunity to apply. Again, sell yourself a little bit, say you want to meet with them, and actually you should look at yourself and or look at them and say, I will contact you in a week to inquire about the status of my application. The follow-up is important as well. People who just throw things over the transom and wait for a response mostly get disappointed. So that's an example of a reasonable cover letter. And my substitute teacher can pause it here and let you discuss this and ask questions if you wish. That was a rather abrupt change, but I wanted to bring up an example of a resume. Again, all the information is here. The absolute layout is not necessarily critical on these things. But again, whatever you use on one, use on both the resume and the cover letter. Again, an objective statement. What are you looking for? Are you looking for a position as a medical assistant? Name the company. You will personalize this and your cover letter for the position. You will identify the practice name or the hospital name or the employer name and position here. This is what you want. Don't just say, I want to be a medical assistant, or I want to be an accountant, or something like that. They don't care about that. Education, college first. High school diploma is not needed if you have a college degree. If you have a college degree, the assumption is that you either have a high school diploma or a GED. So this person is also saying that she is bloodborne pathogens certified. You can also state here that you, it can be there or it can be down in the skills and qualifications section as well. Nonviolent crisis and intervention certified, depending on the position, that might be important. So then your skills, what are your skills? And here, I probably would move the skills up above the education, because they're going to assume you have the education, and they're going to look to see what your skills are. In this particular example, this person broke it into clinical and administrative skills. Okay, in the clinical, phlebotomy, medical terminology, aseptic technique, injections, 12-lead ECG. Here is where you would also put down that you have medical assistant, the CCMA certification. All of these things. Administrative skills, these are fairly important in a medical office. So looking at being able to claim that you're proficient in MS Office, and if you have done any of the Office certifications, list those, and you billing and coding and so forth. So you list your skills, and I like the idea of breaking them into administrative and clinical, where you are in a position where you may be doing some administrative duties. If not, then you have to figure out what you want to do. Employment, most recent fact. Now, they don't need to know that you worked at Burger King. as I said in my video from Monday, you don't need to. They don't need to know that you worked for Burger King in high school. Let that come out in your interview. Then you look like someone who's a go-getter and someone who's willing to work and so forth. If you did everything, I mean, I personally started working when I was 11 years old. Now that may sound kind of shocking these days, but when I was 11 years old, I was on a military base, and so I was working on the base with the permission of my father. So it was a different issue. But I started working at 11. That's always been a good thing for me to say when someone says, well, what else have you done? Well, I started working when I was 11, and so forth. So everything you've done that is potentially related. Here, residential supervisor, this particular residential situation was a home for patients. So it was related to being an MA. Legal assistant and so forth, these were both at the same employer. Obviously a legal office, but it was the administrative experience that was useful. Affiliations, anything here that you have done, volunteer work, they love volunteer work. They want to know that their people are involved in the community. So here's where you would put in things like working for, helping the school with the 9 Health Fair and other kinds of volunteer work. We have a graduate who was a Boy Scout troop leader and advisor all of his life. That's always, of course, he was also an Eagle Scout. That's always an important thing to remember. Any of that stuff you've done. If you are a veteran, get it in there. That's important these days as well. It's never been really unimportant, but there are times when it has been, unfortunately, more important than others. It should always be important, but nonetheless, that too. Now, the issue is that you keep this original resume to a single page. So one of the things we will work on when we are looking at reviewing and getting it right is getting it down to a single page. You will create something called a master application that will say everything that you've ever done, every place you've lived, unless, of course, you had to move every time the rent man came. But it will give everything, all of that. It'd be sort of like filling out a government security clearance application. You'll say everything you've done. That's where you'll put down the Burger King and the McDonald's and working at Home Depot and so forth that you've done that's totally unrelated to this stuff. That's for your own reminder. If you have any publications, and probably most of you don't, but it's possible that you do, and it's very possible that you will during your lifetime. They would go here. As you get further into your career, your resumes tend to get a little longer because you have more to say. But this initial one needs to be a single page. Now, here is where, again, I will ask the substitute to pause this and answer questions, and then do the in-class exercise, which is going to be going over your initial draft to try to improve it. So we want to do that now, and this can be started up again when you are done with that activity. Now, having come back to this class and to this recording, which admittedly is short, but you should be able to get a lot done in that time. Your in-class activity was to review these things. You will also begin, I'd like you to start thinking about what happens next week. Next week, we are working on looking at interviewing and networking. Your discussion will actually fall around that. The in-class activity will be to continue to work on a number of things. Let's take a quick look at it. You will be creating a LinkedIn account, or if you have a serious objection to LinkedIn, a paper discussing your networking plan. We're going to look at all those. And again, we'll be looking at your LinkedIn profile as well, with an object to helping you make this powerful, making it so that someone gets onto your LinkedIn page when they're thinking about hiring you, they are going to check your social media. And LinkedIn is professional social media. So that's a part of what you're going to be doing. The assignment was to do that, and you have an assessment as well. So if I were you, at the end of this class, you'll be you'll have a chance to rework your resume and cover letter that you worked on this week during this class. Get that done and resubmit it. I will be adding a page or an assignment for next week that'll have no points, but it will be the resubmission of your resume and cover letter, because all during the mod we're going to work on improving them. Part of our in-class activities each week will actually go back to looking at each other's resumes and cover letters with the idea of making them absolutely powerful, so that when you are applying for that job, people look at it and say, got to get this person in here to interview. And then it will all be about how well can you market yourself in a face-to-face conversation. So work on that. As I said, there will be, by the time you get into class on Wednesday, actually maybe even by, maybe it's already done. By the time you get into class on Wednesday, you will find that I have added a 0-point assignment to week 2 for resubmission of resume and cover letter, and I'll also put one into week 3 because we really want to work on those. So that's what we want to do, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to be in class today. I will see you on Monday for sure. And I hope you have a good weekend, and I'll be looking forward to seeing these assignments coming in. I will remind you, you've got daily checkpoints. Get those done. I will also remind you that you have your discussion. You're supposed to have the initial post by midnight Wednesday, which is going to be the day you hear this. I will respond to at least half of you, if not all of you. It's not a giant class. So I will make some responses as well. And you can look for a second posting from me on Thursday. So have a good weekend, and I will see you Monday.